How's it going today, folks? You know, about 3 or 4 years ago, I just put up this video about how to build a HOLZ Hausen, which was a bunch of clips that I just took, or pictures I took when I built my first one. And since I built that first HOLZ Hausen, I must have built, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 since. And it's become a very natural way to stack wood for me. So what I want to do today is go ahead and show you guys how to build a HOLZ Hausen. I started cutting my wood last week, and I've also got 3 wheelbarrows and a green bucket over there of wood I split about 2 or 3 weeks ago that have just been sitting around. So I want to get going on this. Before we get started building, I just want to give you a few tips on where to build your HOLZ Hausen. And the first one is you want to try to find a sunny spot or a spot with good air circulation. If it's a really shady spot and it's always damp, I wouldn't build one there. I am in a shady spot, but my maple trees are much higher above, so we should be all right over here. I like to build on top of gravel. You don't need gravel. I laid down a pad of 3/4 inch gravel. A couple months ago, I got like 3 yards and made like a 4 to 5 inch pad of gravel. I like 3/4 inch gravel because if you go smaller to the 3/8 or the pea gravel, it moves too easily. And if you go bigger to 1¼ inch, it's too hard to work by hand. So if you can put some gravel down, you'll be able to just take your wood right from the HOLZ Hausen right to the end of the season. I have seen people build HOLZ Hausens on pallets. I've used pallets to stack firewood through the years, but I've never been a big fan of pallets because you know, I always feel like I'm going to twist my ankle when I step on them getting the wood, or I'm going to get hit by a nail in them. And then when they rot, you've got these pallets you got to get rid of. I would say just build one on the ground, preferably not where the water is going to puddle, and just know that those last layer or two, you're going to have to save that for the next year and just put it on top of the next pile. You want to build your HOLZ Hausen in a place that's convenient because you don't want to have to walk forever to get wood. Last year I made the mistake of leaving one that was maybe 100, 120 feet from the house, and every trip to the woodpile wasn't fun, especially once we had about 2 feet of snow on the ground. I had to shovel a path. So where I'm building my HOLZ Hausen is an out-of-the-way place in the yard. My wife's not going to be upset with me for messing up the yard, although I'd love to build one right by the road, but I fear someone would take it. It's close enough to the house where it's easy to get to, and this is the most logical spot for wood storage. I was reading a book about how they used to build barns, you know, back in the day, and they said they would actually put the firewood shed on the way to the outhouse. And think about how logical that is, because whenever they went out to go to the bathroom, they could just come back with an armload of wood. When I've read up on a HOLZ Hausen, I've seen some posts saying how it's hard work, it's really difficult, and usually the people that say it's really difficult or hard to do are building them too small. The larger the diameter of your HOLZ Hausen, the better. So I usually use about a 9-foot diameter circle. I think traditionally the logical way is a 3-meter diameter or about 10 feet. 10 feet, it's a lot of wood. If you have a 10-foot HOLZ Hausen, that's a lot of wood. I usually do about 9 feet, but the bigger the better. I just took 2 tape measures and I made an X, and I just moved it around until I was comfortable with where things were going to be. When you make your HOLZ Hausen, just remember that wherever you put your first row, your wood is usually going to go a little bit beyond, maybe 2 or 3 inches, not that far. Now you can be as fancy as you want with the ring on the outside. I've seen people, you know, take a rope and make a circle. The way I've always done it, and this is really as precise as you need to be, is to just take a tape measure, lay it down, and then that's where you lay your first course on the ground. One of the mistakes I made when I built my first HOLZ Hausen is I used pieces of wood that were too big on the bottom. I took these giant pieces because I wanted to be sure that my HOLZ Hausen was going to angle to the inside. But you really don't need that great of an angle going to the inside. So, I mean, here's a piece just to give you a scale of what I'm going to go with this time. We'll see how I do at the end. But this piece is maybe 3.5, 4 inches in diameter. And I've got my tape measure set to 4'6". It's 4'3" plus 3 for the tape. So I'm just going to use that as my my outside of my logs, and I'll just go ahead and lay that one in. Move my tape a little bit, touch the pole, go to the outside, and there we go. When you're building your first course, you really want to find nice straight pieces of wood that are very uniform. It's going to make the process a lot easier. So I'm just touching the post, touching the previous log. Good. Touching the post, touching the previous log. And that one's a little bit high. Touching the post, previous log, good. When I'm building this first row, I'm really cherry picking. I want nice straight pieces of wood. I don't want any big knots bulging out of them, and I want them to have a uniform width. And the way I usually do it is I put the fatter part towards the outside. When you get to the end of your circle, you're going to have an odd-shaped size. So there's two different ways you can go here. You can scavenge through your pile and see if you can find one small enough that's going to fit that gap. You could always cut one if you needed to be just the right size. Or you can just get one that's close enough and then kind of bend the pile out just a touch to get it to fit. Doesn't have to be that precise. Now we've got our base established and we're ready to start filling the middle or creating the outside walls. And what I've done is as I've been building the outside, any odd-shaped pieces, any small pieces, I've just been tossing in the middle. And that's the beautiful part about this Holz Hausen is, you know, you don't really have to think every time you place a log. You can just throw the bad ones in the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to start grabbing logs, putting them on the outside, and I usually let them go for this first row, maybe an inch or two past the end of the log. And what I also try to do is I build my pile with the bark down. The bark will actually keep the moisture from evaporating out, and it makes sense to me, so that's the way I do it. So as we build the Holz Hausen, you'll see me putting the bark down. When you're grabbing your logs, you know, just you don't need a tape measure for every log, but just take a look at them. This side is about 4.5. This side is about 4.5. That's pretty even. Doesn't really make a difference. This one here, this side is about 2.5. This side is about 1.5. So I'm going to put my fatter side on the outside. If I notice that my pile's arching too quickly inward, angling too quickly inward, you can always put the fatter side on the inside. You can kind of control it as you go. But to start out, I'll usually end up with the fat ones on the outside. And because I dumped all of my nastier pieces on the inside, I can just pick from those. This one's fatter, so I'm going to put that on the outside. This one's got a funky thing coming off of it. I'm going to put that on the inside. And then this one, and you're just going to work your way around, and you'll put a little bit of space between your logs on this row too. The insides are going to touch, but because the diameter of the circle out here is fatter than here, you need to put a little bit of space on the outside, like the spokes of a wagon. And please don't read into this too much. It's not as complicated as I seem to be making it, but there is a method to the madness here. So we just keep grabbing logs and stacking them. And I'm going to work my way around. And just do this the entire way around, or actually what I usually end up doing is I will when I'm building the bottom, I'll actually end up building like half of it first and filling the middle. I'll do sections. And once I get up to about a foot or so, then I'll start to throw some more stuff in the middle. I don't know if I want to use this one. I don't want to use that one. All right. So all we're doing is just grabbing wood and putting it in there, and just keep doing that. If you've got round logs, it's okay to put them down low, but what I don't think you should do is put a whole bunch of round logs. Round logs tend to want to move. So if you've got a bunch of round ones, try to leave them separate with angled logs around, because the angled ones will kind of keep them secured. Okay, but we're just going to keep doing this. Can't use that one. Earlier in the video, I showed a clip of 3 wheelbarrows full of wood and a green barrel, and I've got it all in the HOLZ Hausen now. So that's what it looks like. There is a lot of room in one of these HOLZ Hausens for firewood. Well guys, I've spent about 2.5 hours today working on my HOLZ Hausen. I've used the wood I showed you in the original clip, the 3 wheelbarrows and the green barrel. And then I had about five loads of ash, 5 wheelbarrows full of ash already split. But bug in the eye, man. I'm pretty much all caught up with the wood supplies I have. What I've done is I've gone around the outside of the pile, and I'm about, I'd have to say about 1.5 feet off the ground, about 20 inches high right now. So what I'll do before the next video is go ahead and finish closing the gap on the side over there, and then we'll come back and show you how to keep moving up. Just out of curiosity, let's measure how far it is across the diameter of this pile. Right now where I am is, it was 9 feet. So just for comparison purposes, I mean, that's what a 9-foot HOLZ Hausen looks like. So regulation 10-footer would be about 6 more inches out. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the stake. There's no need for that stake anymore once you get the bottom row done. And we'll see you soon. Have a great day.